Welcome back, everybody, to a long-awaited episode of Astral Stew. The stew has been simmering for quite some time.
Astral Stew.
We've had to stir it. By the way, Stefan, when you do that, your mic
Cuts out.
detects it as noise and it cuts
so
it out.
Cool.
So
it's
all
so
we
cool.
see is you going, but with no sound associated.
It's important.
Fantastic. That's the level of quality that you can come to expect from Astral Stew.
Mm-hmm.
Video artistry.
Our stew is chunky, like us. So, sorry, Stefan, didn't mean to offend.
I've lost weight.
Anyways, yes, it's been a hot minute since you've had an Astral Stew episode, but we're back. We're here today, and we're here to talk to you about all the stewiness that some of it has transpired since we last talked, and some of it's just
some has just congealed into this harder substance around the edge of the simmer pot.
Some of it's melted like cheese.
Yep, hard cheese that's crusted to the edge like lasagna and that oven mac and cheese. Yeah,
and French onion soup.
So yeah, whatever it be, the crusty edges, the French onion soup, the kibbles and bits, the bits and kibbles. I don't know. But anyways, we're gonna get into it. But before we do that, before we get into the topics of the day, we have the psychic word of the week, which also influences us, or psychic word of the month, or quarter, or whatever cadence we're going to put this episode out on. But Stefan, do you want to read a word from us? Have you picked a page? Do you need a page?
No, I flipped it right before we started. So for the psychic word of the week, the one that I landed on was Faraday cage. Faraday cage. The use of Michael Faraday's theory for psychic experiments, a cubicle large enough for one or two persons, built out of concrete, steel, or other metals, designed so that whatever is placed in it would resist penetration of radio or electromagnetic waves. For example, a psychic was placed in this cubicle and performed PK experiments. Objective was to determine whether the increase in psychic energy comes from within the body or from an outside environment.
Yeah, I've actually heard about those experiments being done with the Faraday cage, and bottom line is that they were still able to do their psychic things in a Faraday cage. So it's not, it's not being influenced by radio waves or electromagnetism or any of that kind of stuff. It's coming from somewhere else.
I'm now going to pretend that the skiff that Grush and all those people have wanted to have is actually just a Faraday cage.
It's just a Faraday.
It's just a Faraday.
I like that.
Actually, it's even worse than that. It's like a conference room that just has the right people in it. So
I thought the skiff was supposed to be like impenetrable as well.
It is.
Okay.
I mean, so there's a guard standing outside.
No, it supposedly has like stuff that so it's soundproof. It's all kinds of stuff.
No Wi-Fi signal is what I assume.
Are you basing that off of knowledge of military operations, or are you basing that off of a TV show?
No, I'm basing that off of what I read about a skiff online.
Okay, cool. And was that on fandom.org?
No, it was on onlyfans.com.
Okay. All right.
She was looking good in a skiff, let me tell you.
There's some toes in this house. Anyways. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've been thinking about building my own Faraday type apparatus to see if it has any impact on like the ability for me to use my dowsing rod things and stuff like that. So it sounds like it's already been done, and there's no point in me spending money to build one. So,
can we also really quick talk about Josh's facial hair and how he's trying to become Heineck?
Hold on, because that's going to derail us, and I want to say along the lines of Faraday cages, skiffs, and then Josh's exploration. The way that it's manifesting for me is I want to do a float tank.
Ooh, yes.
Like, and then I was wondering if you could maybe go to like a new age float tank where they've like got the crystals on the outside to block everything else.
I want to do it like in Fringe. Remember in Fringe when they would use the float tank and then do a little LSD and then travel and.
I never watched that. I'm gonna have to.
You have to watch Fringe. Fringe is so good. Yes, watch Fringe. Watch Fringe.
Yeah, anybody who's listening who hasn't watched Fringe, watch Fringe.
Yeah, there's a lot of concepts we talk about a lot on this show in Fringe.
I mean, it's definitely a sci-fi show, but it contains elements that are, I think, pulled from real-world discussions. So,
Yep, definitely watch Fringe. You'll super enjoy it.
Yeah. So, anyways, on to our first conversational topic. So, Santosh, you had proposed in a chat back a few months ago about the possibility. Sorry.
Oh, I mentally am now preparing myself. I thought the way that you texted it, that would be happening as the second or third topic. So hold on, let me get my game face on.
Okay. So the idea, kind of like a twist on a common question of, are we food, but in the realm of like our souls or our energy is food. So, and then you, even before we got started, you mentioned some word that you heard recently that is kind of related to that in context.
Yeah. You've turned it a little bit interpretationally towards food. I've gotten notes down to like bring us back out of that, because where it started was I've heard Jeremy Corbell say it like twice now, and then I think that the Tennessee senator said it once, and there was somewhere else that I've heard them say the phrase containers in reference to humans being containers. And so my question to you all was, containers of what? What the fuck?
Yeah.
And we're already jumping straight to soul, but I was like, is that harvestable energy? And so I'm not Junji Blitzer, but I did find a word.
Rest in peace, Honey Bear.
I mean, how do you know you're not?
Maybe I'm channeling her. Maybe that's why that came through and how I found
maybe
this.
Maybe you're reincarnated. You don't have to be reincarnated in a completely different lifetime,
I could be June in a parallel world. Like
true that.
The term was loosh and looshing, a new age term applied to energy produced by human beings that other entities use to feed from. So food with where you were going to, but I'm like, but what if we're like containers of energy that's harvestable in other dimensions? Because where most people go is, once you're dead, they're going to eat your soul. What if we're being harvested right the fuck now?
Yeah.
And how would we know multidimensionally?
Immediately, I think of Dark Crystal when they're like harvesting those little creatures, like their life force, the energy, remember? And then they would drink it so that they wouldn't age.
Well, and immediately when I go to is thinking about night hags and something that you and I had talked about way back on, like, even when it was Fearscape podcast, was do night hags feed off of your fear? And so they come around, you get all scared, your body starts producing the fear hormones and all that kind of stuff, and then they sit there and just feed off of your fear,
like politicians.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it holds water that we may be. I don't know that I mean, I have no evidence to support the contrary, but that we are somehow like a renewable resource, so to speak, of energy for entities. Like, I don't know. I would agree that we are producing psychic energies or even just emotional energies from our different emotional phases that could be, sustenance for some entity out there. Whether or not there's some sort of it would imply that there is a plan in place to use us as that source of sustained sustenance. Right. And yes, I just said 3 S words in a row, so there's a tongue twister. There's a tongue twister for you. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I like that you referenced fear, because it also shows that if we are containers being used to feed from, that it's more than just our normal soul energy, right? It could be fear energy. Succubus feeds off of our sexual energy, or incubus and succubus, so those are multiple forms of energy that they could be feeding off of.
Already happening in this dimension. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so the things that like, but have you all also, by the way, Josh? Ooh, yeah, that makes me think. Like, as someone who struggles with their own emotions, if emotions might not be like I think you both said, like some form of something's feeding off of them. But then that kind of gets with the astral nasties and they've been around a while.
Mhm.
But have you all heard this tying into the don't go into the light theory?
No.
No.
That we are this like we're doomed to reincarnation because we are that renewable source, and that is feeding on us plugged us back into the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, and that goes on to perpetuate their system. And so some are saying that light that you see is not just is more than a tunnel, it's how you fall back into the trap of being food, of reincarnated battery. I like the term battery better than
recycled even.
You know, that kind of makes me wonder, like, and I know it's a fiction, but in the movie The Matrix, were all of those people who were plugged in as batteries, did they have a soul? And if so, and the reincarnation is a thing, when they died, did they just reincarnate back into a battery? And if so, does that mean what you're talking about, Santosh, is that we are kind of like a battery? Instead of powering an electrical system for a race of machines, we're powering some entity and sustaining it in its life form.
And like I've also noticed that like people like to put it off because there's a whole lot of like, once you're dead, this is what's happening. And I'm like, more than likely, if we're harvestable, it's an ongoing thing, right?
Well, and if you think about the messaging from especially from a lot of the religions in the world, the messaging is all positive about going to the light, about moving on to the next phase of existence, whether you're Christian and you're going to heaven, or it's something else and you're going into a reincarnation state or what. But there's this really positive sense of going to the light as being from a marketing perspective, it would make sense to convince your food source that it's important that they go to the light for this great acceptance that they're going to receive, when in all actuality, it just puts them back in for the continuation.
I'm just saying, why can't they feed off belly fat?
Yeah. So this is a bleakness episode. So sorry, everybody.
Bleakness? No, I think it's great because I don't like to think that we're cattle, but I don't mind thinking that we're like some sort of like interdimensional plant, and somebody is like, like plucking a flower that's not going to hurt us in this dimension.
But then, what would be the so if the going to the, let's just tease
flower
this
power.
So if the going to the light is the reincarnation back into the body to be again harvested throughout your lifetime, and you're stuck in that visceral cycle, how do you get out of it? How do you stop being food?
Yeah, well, what happens when you're not food?
Right. Well, I think that's also what religions are trying to point at too, a little bit, at least because we know Buddha said he's got this path out, right? Like liberation. Even in yoga, you've got like moksha, and so you're trying to like shave off the time that you do. So yogically, it's if you can get over yourself, really, at the end of the day, and all the bullshit that you think is you. So
maybe spirits that don't go on to the other side, that are quote unquote trapped in this space and need to be freed and sent to the other side, are really just, they figured it out. They figured out the loophole.
Ooh, that the existence of ghosts is more like people avoiding, like on purpose, avoiding the light.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or what if even ghost-like creatures, like even demons or angels or things like that, jinn, gods, like because they didn't go, they kept all of that energy and were able to gain powers.
So it's like the
where
movie
your psionic power comes from.
They evolved, yeah.
So it's like that movie with Jet Li, The One, where he kills off all of his multidimensional selves and he becomes this great, ultimate, powerful being, right? So it's kind of like that. Of, they didn't pass on and then pass on their energy. They they stayed and kept it, and
They became something greater.
yeah.
Have you all seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
So
No.
good. Oh, Josh, you need
Check
to
it out.
watch that movie.
It's good. I was using that as a segue into thinking like what if it's that we are multidimensional creatures, other parts of what we call our past lives are happening now, and that it takes the cohesion of the entire unit working together to escape this.
So we all have to find ourselves, literally. Like we have to find our other aspects of ourselves that are currently in existence in this physical space-time and come together, and then we can transcend.
Man,
Or you
need
just
to watch
dissolve
everything.
into the all, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you dissolve into the hole. Ugh.
Like that, the opposite of multiplicity.
Yeah.
Like the end of The Good Place. Such a great ending.
I don't watch it. Sorry.
It's another good one. It's okay. I've never seen Gone with the Wind.
Neither have I.
You're like the first person that I've known besides me. That used to make me feel special. Thanks. For
Neither
making
of you
me
have
feel
seen
special.
it? God, I've seen it like 50 times because it was always on growing up, and so we always watched it. Like The Wizard of Oz. That was like one of the things we watched.
I always
when it was
found
on
the Sound of
TV.
Music was always on.
Sound of Music. Yep, there's another one.
So speaking of older
What if they
movies,
feed off of musicals? And the whole American experiment was to just make this unique form of theater that feeds everyone multidimensionally.
That's that Strange New Worlds episode. The musical episode.
yeah. Maybe they feed off of country music when they needed,
That's just sadness. They're just feeding off sadness. They're feeding off country music.
I mean, well, so a little bit back to like a almost seriousness note, but so if there's stuff that feeds off of fear, let's say there's stuff that feeds off of anger, and those would all be considered maybe low vibrational energies or something, or you're really not.
They tend to get demoted in that way.
Yeah. So when then the high vibrational energies like love and excitement and happiness and glee and all, like would those potentially be like the dessert of because they're sweeter tasting.
I don't know, but
because-
Santasha makes me think of pagan rituals, raising the cone of power. We're just feeding the gods.
And then I thought of Monsters Inc. That children's laughter was much more potent than their
Yeah.
screams and fears.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't like to down fear and anger. I know we don't like them, but they are necessary as part of our existence. And so I think more of like all the colors of the Lantern Corps,
Mhm.
like I think more like that. They've got their own thing going on that's their own strength, but they can get sticky because love can be turned into something that's still
Yeah.
love, but is dangerous and scary. And,
Yep.
like just as easily as jealousy could lead to whatever, but fear, aren't you afraid of touching the stove when it's
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be afraid.
Yep.
Like,
So then what you're saying is all emotion in moderation.
yes, maybe that's the meal deal value platter.
There are certain entities out there that are certain types of gluttons, that like an incubus or a succubus. They're love gluttons.
Well, I would even say lust. in that regard.
Night hat. Yeah, same. Love
both,
or lust.
both like
Yeah.
love and lust gluttons.
Yep. And then, night hags we were talking about are fear gluttons.
I like this.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
Well,
it's not-
Elizondo is the anger goblin.
I mean, so maybe it's not so much that it's some sort of a controlled mechanism for feeding off of us, but rather when we are not in control of ourselves, when we are existing in life but not living in life in complete control of ourselves, we're just shedding all kinds of energies, emotional energies all the time. And maybe we, walk around and there's like a trail of just emotional energies that flow around us and behind us, and things
Rips
just walk up
behind
and
us.
feed themselves from us.
Well, like Stefan, I got you to read a little Carlos Castaneda, didn't I?
Mhm.
Okay, Josh, have I tried to get you to read any yet?
Yeah, I read dream.
The art of dreaming.
Art of Dreaming.
Art of Dreaming. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good. So in the other parts, when you meet, I think it's Don Girano. I'm forgetting the second teacher's name, but he talks about going to theaters and feeding off of all of that energy that's thrown up in that space. Like think about movies and all of the emotions that raises in the place, and like there
Well,
are
I mean,
theaters that go there to
psychic vampires.
because
That
well,
would-
and
yeah.
you can't get mad because you're throwing that energy everywhere
Right.
Yep.
and openly. So
Yep. I mean, that's why we learn how to shield and stuff to shield ourselves from
Right.
psychic
But-
vampires, especially those that don't realize it's not just entities; it's humans. Humans feed off of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people that are so empathic and they don't realize that they're so empathic, and so even just inadvertently, they feed off of energies of others. So, yep. All good thoughts. I mean, I'd love to know anybody who's listening or watching. What are your thoughts on these topics that we've talked about so far? Do you think that we are energetic food of sorts, or do you think it's just maybe we are energetic food of sorts, but it's more of a byproduct of existence and not so much some sort of a designed
Or-
mechanism for us to be so?
we're sentient batteries. Maybe
Yeah.
you just think of us all as AAAs.
And in that regard, maybe that's what all of life is.
Wish I
Maybe
had that
all
old
of
gauge
life
where I could
is-
just press it and it would show me how much is left.
But maybe all of life is some sort of a psychic battery for the physical plane.
Yeah, I was like, because plants have energy too.
Oh, yeah.
So
So changing gears slightly, wanted to talk a little bit about the jellyfish UFO, which has now been in the news for a couple months, I think, since when this airs. But when I first saw it, I thought, I even made a post on social media about it. Is this just bug guts on a lens? But I have since discovered how the specific camera that was used, actually operates and what its housing looks like, and bug guts on a lens is not really a possibility with that type of camera. So,
but it could be on the window of whatever they were in. Bug guts on a window.
it wasn't like the camera is like a domed housing, and the imager sits and it views through the housing. So there's no. It doesn't see like we see. It doesn't see bug guts or bird poop on a lens. It wouldn't see that. But
I'm glad you brought up bird poop because that's what I saw when I saw it.
I saw bird poop. Bird poop on a windshield.
But I watched the show on I think it was on Tubi.
Yeah.
It was the full
TMZ.
like everybody grabbed like a snippet.
Full 17.
They put that on socials, but there's like a full video, and there's a separate angle of the same video, and in that angle it's clear that it's not bird crap or a bug on a lens. So it just, for me, it raises the question of, for a lot of people, they think about UFOs as nuts and bolts craft, right? They're physical objects that are being flown by somebody. But I recently had a story that was provided by a friend that she talked about experiencing 2 orbs that had 3 smaller orbs. And when she told me this story, the immediate thing that popped in my head was, a bonded pair and their offspring. But so what is the if we think about UFOs in that regard, that some may be nuts and bolts craft, but maybe some are just they themselves are living entities that are
Like on Nope.
That's what I was going to bring up.
I don't want to think about Nope, but sure.
Yeah, I mean they were, twist. Spoiler alert. They were living entities, so that's that sounds like something that is gaining some more acceptance.
But I mean, even a friend of mine here in the Phoenix area, he's seen some orbs outside of his house or his apartment, and he said one night he saw one large one and 2 little ones, and they looked to be frolicking, was the word that he used, kind of in the night sky. And so it just really makes you think, maybe these things are some sort of life themselves and not just nuts and bolts craft.
Yeah.
Well, the jellyfish one definitely leans more towards that line of thought for sure.
Yeah.
I just thought it looked too messy to be something living, because it looks like it's got boxes and tubes just hanging everywhere. That's the way I perceived it.
But I wanted the boxes and tubes to be moving in the wind. That's
Yeah,
where I
right,
had
not just
struggles
like
with it.
permanent dangle.
Yeah, but I mean that's also taking us as humans and thinking that everything would apply or react to our environment like we do. Right? I mean, maybe it's halfway there and halfway not. Maybe it's in between dimensions as at the moment that it's moving through the space. Like if you had an octopus out of water and you moved it around, its limbs are rigid enough that it could certainly keep them steady as moving through the air. So it doesn't always have to be, the wavy arm guy from the car lot that we see flying through space.
I have had a wavy biomechanical experience. One of the things that I saw when we were living in Louisville, and I've shared it, I think, here and a couple of times, it looked like it was the tail end of a creature, but it was like those hay blades that are look like gigantic shark teeth. Yep. Mm-hmm. So metallic, but moving like a whip like that, mm-hmm. as it went through my wall. So I'm kind of like, I wonder if I made it where I thought it was ghost energy. I wonder if that was maybe interdimensional life form type energy. I'm gonna have to really think about that.
Yep. What do you think about? Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what about Mark D'Antonio's debunking of it? That it's just a Ramadan balloon or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, that I understand what he's trying to get to, and he's and Mark is, I think, very much a nuts and bolts kind of craft kind of guy. So to think about it being in that position or condition, I think is hard for him to fathom. But I also know that the balloon image that he grabbed, somebody, I mean, it's been proven that someone created that. They used the image from the screen grab of the UFO, and they went and found balloons to fit together that made that shape. And so they said it could be balloons. Also the other piece of the debunking, so to speak, is that the holiday in reference there, I think, happens in like June or July, but this was filmed in October. And then the last little piece there is that all of the balloons that were used were English letters. What's the possibility of someone in the Middle East selecting English letter balloons for their holiday?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it's, again, I think that people who, and I'll say that's the biggest, I think, shortfall or danger, if you will, to the UFO community, is that people think about and they have their own idea around what these things are. And so any evidence or anything that comes forward that challenges that idea that they've created, they immediately reject or create some, far-flung video to debunk. Even those people who claim to be scientists in this space should understand that as scientists, you have to be willing to accept data that does not support your hypothesis. Data, or the absence of data, is still telling you something about whatever it is you're trying to figure out. So,
yeah, agreed.
I am sad that I'm pretty sure it was a TikTok that I saw, and obviously it was doctored, but it was taking the jellyfish UFO and it put a miniature gray in this Charles Xavier kind of seat, mm-hmm. mobile seat thing, and then all of that was just hanging from there, and I was like, ooh, and of course it was reconstructed, blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, it's obviously bullshit, but still, a cool interpretation of the jellyfish.
Well, when I first saw it, the thing that really popped into my head was the scene from Men in Black, the second one, where the bald, really weird guy, he turns out to be this really big-headed alien guy in this suit that has all these arms and stuff that he can used, if you remember
Yeah.
that scene. So that's what I immediately thought of is that this is some sort of a nuts and bolts thing, and there is a pilot inside of it. It's just not in a traditional UFO type shape.
Yeah. Right. Could be from another dimension or another planet or something that hadn't visited yet.
Or
the
biomechanic species that another alien species has developed
Co-opted.
a relationship with.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, and that's the point of everything is, I think, just to say, if you don't know, it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say it doesn't fit within the current paradigm that I'm pursuing, but sure, why not? It could be that. There's the constant need to debunk anything that doesn't fit within your paradigm is the problem. So
Yep, I agree with that 100%.
Paradigm shifts. Like I didn't think that I would be living in a time where flat Earth was a viable option for people to choose from.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
of the way that we've just adapted and how I feel like the population has been split and is living in, it's not two different realities, as in two different states, but rather two different realities existing in the same space, because it's all the interpretation of the chemical soup that's inside our skulls anyway.
Yep. Or the stew, as you might say.
That's why we keep you around.
So I do want to kind of wrap up. We usually keep these around 30 minutes, and we're getting around there. So I want to take an opportunity because Santosh, you've got your show is still running. Psychic Sleep Hour with Santosh. I think maybe you may have shortened the name.
It's now Psychic Sleep, the podcast. That's the podcasty bit. Trying to work on advice you gave and get it on YouTube. But right now it's basically Instagram and
So and that's the podcast that you do is all around Yoga Nidra. And so for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what Yoga Nidra is, care to give a 5-minute elevator speech?
It is a fantastic way to stretch out the space that we naturally go through on our way to sleep, which is a heightened alpha and a little bit of theta, encouraging those things and all. And that can be done and manipulated by internal visualizations that you go through. So my guru's guru kind of put it down in this form back in the 40s, but it's mentioned in much more ancient scripts and things like that. And basically it's a whole yoga practice in and of itself, but all you do is lay in your comfy spot and listen, imagine along. And that's the best part. Nobody knows that, what you're imagining on the inside. You're the only judge and guard of that. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to speak except for to say you want to pass on the share. So you don't need to show up on video. You only need to say that you don't feel like chatting if you want to. So participation is wide open. Like even my neurodivergent peeps, if you keep the camera off and you want to dance around while it's going on, I've had people come to that and do that as well. Whatever helps you explore stillness at your own pace, but also it teaches you the process of meditation at the same time, which is a progressive set of relaxations and heightened focus. And I don't know, is that a good enough feel?
And so where can
it's fun,
they go?
I like it.
And so where can they go to get more information?
Again, Santosh David 333 across most social media. Instagram I'm super active on now. You can reach out at Facebook. Like I said, trying to get into YouTube and my website. You can do that as well. SantoshDavid333.com should take you to SantoshDavid.com. Same thing. And that should be some ways to reach out and find me. I'm getting better at it.
And Stefan, you have got some improv stuff going on. Do you want to share any of that?
Sure, if you're local, because all my stuff, none of it's online. So I teach with Improv 502 in Louisville, Kentucky. We have some classes coming up. You can search Improv 502 on Facebook and find the events to see if you're interested in taking any improv classes. Like I said, that's not online, so it's only for locals. But yeah, that's what I got.
But if you're traveling and you find yourself in Louisville for a night and you happen to line up with a class, maybe jump in and catch a little improv stuff, right?
Yep, that's right.
So And then, of course, for me, I've got my show, Mysterial Experiences, which is just a podcast that talks to people who have had experiences and understands, really to look into understand the human element of the experiences that we have. And so, yeah, it's just it's about an hour or so each show, and it's different guests. And so you look it up on YouTube or, all the podcast places, Mysterial Experiences. So thanks everybody so much for tuning in to this episode of Astral Stew. We hope you've learned something. We hope you've had fun listening to all of us talk about these different things. And we would love to know your comments. If you're listening to this on the podcast version on Spotify, there's an opportunity for you to leave a comment there, or on YouTube, you can leave a comment there as well. So thank you all so much.
Containers of what? Go.
Yeah, containers of what?
Go, peeps, go. Containers of what?
Containers of what? Ramen. We're all containers of ramen.
I can't.
Gomez is coming after us.
I'm 1/4 ramen.
So thank you all so much again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye. We love you.